the June 7th Amherst County Service Authority meeting to order. We do have a quorum. Let's see, are there any citizens here wishing to speak? Hearing and seeing none, we'll move on to approval of the agenda. Board members, is there a motion to approve the agenda as submitted?
So moved.
All right, it's a motion on the floor. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
I vote aye. All right, next thing is approval of the minutes for May 3rd. Has the board had a chance to review those?
If I could jump in, Mr. Martin, there was one bust that Regina, thank you Regina, picked up after I'd already put the agenda out. Mr. Wade was not at the last meeting, and she's already corrected that, but even so, it would need to be a motion for an amended minutes.
All right, so Mr. Popovich, since he was not here, he can't necessarily vote on those minutes, is that correct?
That rule has since been changed in Robert's Rules of Order, so yes, you could vote on it.
Okay, good.
Yes.
All right.
It's a recent change.
So is there a motion to approve the minutes as amended?
So moved.
All right, any discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
I vote aye. All right, moving on to the financial report for April 2022. Mr. Hopkins.
Well, the only, I had in the summary, I mentioned that I did a reformatting to try to clear up the confusion that's always going on about the non-operational stuff. I'm hoping that's going to help clear things up and make the report more amenable to everybody. But other than that, unless you all had any questions, that's.
So there's no new water connections in April?
There was one, as I recall. Oh, I'm sorry. There's one, maybe it's a sewer. One new sewer connection in April.
4 new service connections, I think it said, right? Since, through April, 4 new, never mind, excuse me, I was on wastewater.
So I'm looking at number 1, ACSA operations revenue water, B connections through April, 13 new water service connection, but then in parentheses it says 0 in April.
Yes, so through April, we've had 13 so far this year, but we had none in April.
Oh, I see, okay. Board, are there any questions?
I don't have any
Mr. Pugh?
right now.
I don't have any. I mean, I could be pessimistic and say with the rising cost of fuel, interest rates and so forth, I hope we're not going to see a trend where we start going in the negative direction, but it's possible with the climate that we're having. So let's hope that we follow a good path and not the path of that I just described. So.
Correct.
People have to use water and get rid of their wastewater. So as long as they're paying the bills, we should, I mean, the inflation really shouldn't hurt us.
Yeah, but they don't have to build new ones.
Well, that's true too.
Don't have to build new, and then, I mean, with the cost of everything. Anyway, we can talk about this later. I'll go ahead and save my comments for later.
Okay. All right, moving on to old business, the Service Authority's Executive Director's Report.
And again, I submit the report as presented in your packet. Unless you all have any questions, I really don't have anything to add to it.
All right, board members.
What are we under? I'm sorry, the old, are we old?
The Executive Director's Report.
Okay.
Just giving us update on projects.
I did want to mention one thing in case you didn't see it. On page 3, the Seminole Plaza Shopping Center. I'm not sure who has engaged McGuire Woods to go after the shopping center about fixing that sewer, but apparently McGuire Woods is now involved. I don't know whether the property owners did or VDH did, but they did send a letter to the shopping center owner saying that they're expecting this to be fixed sometime soon.
Very good.
Any timeline on that? You know?
No, not yet. I just got the letter, I think, on May 31st, something like that. And then you've got photos on the back showing just some of the progress in the dam construction.
We got a drone?
Yes. Well, we don't, no, Herd Profit does. Pretty cool, though, isn't it?
Yeah, it is cool.
You can see a lot better than me taking pictures from ground level.
Let me see here. Give me a second, I want to pull those up and look at them again. Oh, yeah.
Photographs.
Where do things stand right now with the softball field?
It makes the mountains.
I really haven't heard from them in a long time. I think that their season has already started, so I'm assuming they're going to wait until after the season is over. And I did talk to Nate Young, who was on the board, and he said that's probably what they were going to do, but I haven't heard definitively, so I'm just assuming.
Gotcha. I think they're nearing the end of the season now, so,
I think Nate said they'd probably be looking at doing something in August.
okay.
I'm good.
All right. Mr. Wade, you okay?
Yes.
All right. Moving on to the Assistant Director's report.
I guess I have nothing to add other than the report submitted as is written. The only thing I did have one thing I wanted to add, and that's on the non-revenue water monthly report. We'll begin tracking in May. This is something I think the Executive Director had done some extensive work on in the past and gave me some guidance on. There's a couple of things I left off the bullets for real losses for Amherst County Service Authority, and that would be the filter wash at the treatment plant and firefighting, any kind of use of the fire hydrants. And I spoke to the fire department about getting me an estimated report of how many gallons they may use to fight a fire that may offset some of the non-revenue water.
I have a question in regards to the payment process online. I noticed on here, it says the new Amherst County website. And I've noticed when you go in there to put your information in, it asks you what you paid for the last month, I guess is a way to find your account. Are you familiar with what I'm talking about?
Yes.
So you put in your account number and then you'll put in your last bill. But sometimes I don't have that information. I gotta try to go look for it and figure it out. But I guess you can create your own account. Maybe it would be a little bit better having your username and ID. But that's just kind of an obstacle I've seen when I go in there to pay it online. I've got to figure out how much I paid the previous month. And if you don't have that information right on hand, you got to find it, which isn't that big of a deal. But I mean, it is kind of a pain in the butt sometimes. So.
I've never paid that way myself. I didn't know it was like that, but I agree with you. That's kind of a stupid way to do it.
Yeah.
We ought to be able to get that fixed.
And I've enjoyed paying online. I wrote a check and dropped it off at the Dropbox, but I paid the previous month's bill online, but I had the receipt, I tore the receipt and wrote another check for the same amount. I still had an outstanding balance, but online it was all caught up. It said I still owed $5, so everything's working correctly.
Okay.
But I just know that's kind of like a little pet peeve of mine, having to figure out what you paid the previous month when you may be in a rush to get out the door and you want to pay your bill, so.
And we'll talk to Charlene. That may be something in the software that we might not be able to fix, but we'll certainly look into it.
Oh, yeah, just tell me why, and that would be reasonable.
Okay. Anything else? All right, moving on to new business. I think we need to consider if we're going to have or cancel the July Service Authority Board meeting. Falls the day after July 4th, I believe.
Well, I would certainly think, we usually cancel the board meetings too on July 4th of that week. I don't have a problem with canceling that meeting unless there's something really imperative that we need to do. I suppose if we had to, we could always schedule another meeting, but I would certainly be in favor of removing that meeting.
All right, is there a motion to that effect?
Yes, I make a motion that we cancel the meeting for July 5th, 2022.
Okay, any discussion? All right, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
I vote aye. Okay. Service Authority Staff Letter of Appreciation. Mr. Hopkins.
Yes, sir, we talked about this at the last board meeting. We got the county and state water and wastewater professionals appreciation day coming up on June 30th, and I reported at the last meeting that we got another award from the Health Department, annual award for waterworks performance. And so, as per norm, I drafted up a letter of appreciation from myself and the board, and looking for board authorization to Mr. Martin, the board chair, to sign it so I can distribute it to staff.
Well, I will give you my thoughts on this. I think the letter's a great thing, and we can definitely do that. Why don't we, can we like cater them a lunch, or?
We could do that too. I'm also talking to High Peak Sportswear about getting some shirts for everybody like we normally do. But yeah, we could certainly do a lunch or something like that if you like.
Yeah, I would highly recommend that, just to let, something else besides just a letter to let them know they are appreciated.
Okay.
Do you guys have any problems with that?
No, certainly, no, not at all. I know we talk a lot about, where can we grow, what can we do, but the most important thing that we do is to have clean water and service to our people and residents in our community, and I think sometimes we undervalue that, but that's the most important thing that we do to keep people healthy and to make sure that water that's coming into those houses, that it is, of good quality. So we certainly do appreciate what they do, and whatever you come up with, whether it's a catered meal or it's a gift card, something like that would be good.
Whatever you think they would like.
I'll take care of it. Thank you.
So I'd make a motion that the Service Authority Board authorize the board chair to join the executive director in signing a letter of appreciation to the Amherst County Service Authority staff in recognition of Amherst County Water and Wastewater Professionals Appreciation Day on June 30th, 2022, and receiving its 10th consecutive Virginia Department of Health Annual Waterworks Performance Excellent Award, its 12th in 14 years, and second consecutive silver. And added to that the director either hosts a catered lunch for staff or gift cards, whatever you decide to do. Okay? All right. Is there any discussion on that? All right. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
I vote aye. Okay. Let's see. Next thing, availability fees.
Yes, sir. We've been talking about this, for many, many years, but especially in the last couple months, specifically regarding a big development that's coming up in Madison Heights, Mr. Patel's Town Center development. And I think we talked at the last meeting about how the county has never, and the Service Authority has never seen this kind of a development before, and our availability fees policy just is not designed to accommodate it. You can see in the report just what the availability fees for water and sewer would be just for the two apartment buildings in that development. And I think we really need to do something different to try to attract more growth and development in the county. There's actually, there's an even more immediate need. The Monacan Indian Nation is putting a medical clinic at the corner of Dixie Airport Road and Route 29 in Madison Heights. And I don't know how they're going to use 9,200 gallons of water a day, but that's what the engineer has on his plan. And based on that, their fees would be $251,000. And I just don't think that's, if we're going to try to attract development to the county, we've got to do something about this. Mr. Perro has proposed in past meetings and at the workshops with the EDA board, based on availability fees on meter size. I personally don't think that's a real good idea. I mean, and I've got an example in here. If you take the 1-inch meters that we use, they have a range of normal water use of 0.4 gallons per minute to 55 gallons per minute. And if you take two businesses that are identical except they're at opposite ends of that range, you have fees that would range from $7,500 to $720,000. And I don't know how you can pick a fee anywhere in that range that would be fair to everybody. I just don't think that's going to work. What I would prefer, and I think Mr. Woods had proposed this a meeting or two back, about having expanding on the sliding scale that's already in the county code. Right now, if you're putting in a multi-unit building, you pay the base availability fees for the first 3 units. After 3 units, it drops about 15%, I think. And what I would suggest is we expand that and maybe go in with 10-unit blocks, and with each block, you reduce the base availability fee that's assessed per unit. And I've got that that's on the last form, the last page of in your agenda packet. And that's just a suggestion. It's just something to start the mind grinding and the discussion. I personally just don't think doing it by, Bedford Regional Water Authority does it by meter size. And I've sent an email to Brian Key and Nathan Carroll asking how they actually came up with their fees per unit or per meter, and I have not gotten a response yet. So, but I just don't see how you can come up with one. I mean, if you've got a range that large, if you pick a fee at the low end of the range, then we're going to lose, people that are using a lot more water at the high end are going to be getting a bonus. It's a windfall for them, and we lose revenue. If you pick something at the high end of the range, then the people that are using less water are going to be feeling like they're gouged, and they will be. So it's just hard. I don't know how we can pick some fee per unit based on that kind of a range that's fair for everybody.
Well, if you would, humor me a little bit, and let's start at the beginning. Because if the development doesn't occur, we're not getting the revenue either, right? It's not happening. So let's kind of go back and talk about what the purpose of the availability fee is. What do you see that as?
Well, it's a way of paying the service authority back for expenditures that we've made and for the debt service we have in-house for the expansions we've already made to serve the development that is being assessed a fee. And it's also to replenish our coffers so they can pay, also paying it forward by we get new revenues into our coffers so we can extend services or infrastructure out to serve other developments.
So I mean, I get it. Let's just take a hypothetical town center development off 29, which that water main is there, right?
Yes, sir.
And it's been there for years.
But it's going to have to be replaced probably within the next 10 years. And you're talking many millions of dollars. It's only an 8-inch line from Gillett Road all the way down to the end of, to the south end of the line. So it's going to have to be enlarged and replaced as part of the VDOT corridor and the Madison Heights master plan.
All right, I get it. The infrastructure internal to the development, who would be paying for that?
The developer.
The developer. So this fee is really just...
Is to make a connection available.
Make the connection available. But $600 and some odd $1,000, doesn't that seem a little hefty?
Oh, I agree. That's what I'm saying. That's why I think we need to change the policy.
So if you look at Bedford, and I think they base it on meter size.
Yes, sir. You've got the chart in there.
Water's 173,000, right,
For a 6-inch meter, yes, sir.
for a 6-inch meter. But earlier in our conversation, I think in the report, you said you had issues with the meter size because of the amount of water you could get off of a certain meter. Is that?
Yes, sir. Because there's no way to pick one fee that would cover all the different ranges of if you have 50 developers that are going to use a 1-inch meter, some of them are going to use 0.5, it's going to be based on 0.5 gallons per minute, and some of them are going to be based on 50 gallons a minute and anywhere in between. So I don't see how you can pick a fee based on that.
Well, I guess you could also look at it, well, let's just say a 1-inch meter, right? And under this chart, that fee would be $10,700.
Yes.
So, I mean, whether I used 1 gallon a minute or 100 gallons a minute, I'm still paying $10,700. The fact that I use more water is captured in our rates, right?
You can look at it that way. That's the way Mr. Perot was putting it. The way we've always looked at it in the past is we want to base our fees based on the amount of water that you're going to use. But that can always change. That's the past policy.
That seems reasonable to me. What did the rest of the board think?
Are you saying reasonable as in what Bedford does?
Yes.
Yeah, I think so. My point was gonna be, you ought to be able to come up with some of your constituents that are in the same business as you and figure out how they do it, look at what they do versus what we're doing and try to come up with a solution. That's the name of the game, finding something that works. And obviously, it doesn't seem like it's impeding anything in the Bedford area. So maybe that is a,
It runs a gamut, doesn't it? I mean, Campbell does something a
They
little
do it the way we do it.
bit, yeah.
Okay.
but, I mean, I think we would all agree that a $600,000
It's not reasonable.
is not reasonable and it stymies someone wanted to do anything. Now, we don't want to be a giveaway program at the same time, but all you're doing, from what I'm understanding, is you're providing that water to the development. The internal workings would be done by the developer, so something that Bedford is doing, or somewhere along that line, seems like it would be relatively feasible, because I don't think we can do $600,000. The other thing we've done before is, when it has been so exorbitant, the county has, at certain times, given money, paid the availability fee. It was done down there at, Phelps Road School, and that was $400,000 or somewhere in that general vicinity. So, we kind of took it on that one, so maybe we need a change, in those fees.
I think the supervisors would probably like to get away from doing that.
Absolutely.
And I think if we can adjust this policy, we can certainly find a way to do that, so that the supervisors don't have to do that anymore.
Was Mr. Warner here to speak to this? or-
Yes, Trent, one's right here.
I know you, Mr. Warner, thanks for coming today. I know you work in a lot of the different surrounding localities. Give us a good
Yes,
background.
yes, right there.
And you can come sit right here if you want. but anyway. You're a smart man.
Well, y'all do it. Hey, thanks for giving me the chance to speak here. I'm with Hurt and Profit. Mr. Patel is my client at the Madison Heights Town Center development that we did. Mr. Hopkins has been fantastic with us, trying to get us, we were doing our due diligence early on, if you will. So I just sent him a letter and I said, hey, this is how we do it in other jurisdictions. I've done probably 4 apartment complexes in Bedford and a couple apartment complexes in the city of Lynchburg. And I've tried to do a couple in Campbell County that we did not do because of this equivalent problem. What I would call equivalent is, we call that apartment building a house. And because we make a house pay $9,000 for water and sewer, we're gonna make each one of those units. And that's kind of an older school way of thinking. And I just happened to be in 2007, part of the group that started the first apartment complex in Bedford County. And it was in Forest, Gables and Jefferson Commons. And we ran into the same issue. And we got to the point where we were getting ready to make the tap, and the availability fee came, and it was $240,000. That was not in the matrix of, that's what it costs to tap a line. And that's where we found out the unit number. So we worked through the meter process, and I remember that developer saying, I've never been so happy to sign a $120,000 check in my life. Well, we got it so that we got the meter to work out, so we did this by a meter-based size. And you guys have already, traditionally, the way to think of, and this is a lot more than just, and I don't know how much time I have to speak, but just give me some background here, and I don't want to bore you to death. But traditionally, a lot of developments, a lot of planning considers an apartment complex to be more of a commercial interest. So if I was going to build a laundry facility, how much water am I going to use? We're going to put a master meter out there, and we're going to bill that from a master meter. And that's how we've been doing the apartment complexes in Bedford and the city of Lynchburg. The city of Lynchburg has an 8-inch meter that they do their metering based off of that. And it's not by the number of units that are in the development. And when we came here, that was one of the initial questions that we asked Bob, how do we plan for where cleanouts go? How do we plan for where meters go? How do we plan for master metering? And that's when this subject came up. And so just to give you an idea, we're talking about the first 2 apartment buildings that we're designing right now. So this is something that's at the forethought of why we have to do this pretty quickly. We're designing those grading pads now out there next to the executive inn on 29. And that's where this development is going on, the 185 acres. But we're talking about another 12 apartment buildings beyond that. So this $850,000 that we talked about, that was the first quote we got, by the way, was sewer and water, how many units? 108 units. So I know we've just been talking about water here, but it's water and sewer that you end up having your availability fee for. That was $850,000. That's not in anyone's cost of insurance. So that stops it right now. We don't build anything in here exactly right time. 0 times a million is 0. So you still have 0 in here.
So the 850, was that the availability fee that was calculated?
That was the availability.
Was that for 2 apartment buildings or all?
It was 108 units, 2 apartment buildings.
So then you'd have to pay more for the other ones?
The other ones are going to have to do the same thing
So, which would be connecting to infrastructure that you built?
that we build, correct,
Yeah.
and turn over. So it is, I mean, it's exactly what Bob said. We didn't run into, Bedford County hadn't run into it at that time either. So it got more into the meter discussion. And I appreciate what Bob was saying in how do you judge the range of meter and how much they use. But it is through the billing is the answer to that. You do pay a legitimate availability fee in the beginning, but then your bill would be higher because you use more water than the other guy. That's,
Yeah, I kind of think the meter size is the way to go.
yeah.
Mr. Rogers, you were with the Service Authority, right?
In Louisa County,
Yeah.
yes, sir.
How did they do it?
They did not charge an availability fee. They looked at it as an investment up front. You go to the bank, you borrow the money, and then you set your prices to cover the debt service, rather than collecting the money up front in the form of an availability fee and then having to set it aside.
I see.
You know, and another way to do it, of course, is take the availability fee in kind. Since they're building the system that would be ours anyway, accept that as the availability fee. Because that's what you would use the availability fee for anyway.
Well, no, yeah, or you're going to tax the system more, so you might have to provide more water, more chemicals, things of that nature. So that, I wouldn't say that's completely true what you said. There's other variables that go into that.
Of course.
Well, I think
It's just another way to collect money.
I think it all factors back to the rates is where you end up at.
Of course.
Yeah. Okay, thank you, Mr. Rogers.
I looked at what Bob had sent, and this was for the 2 apartment buildings we're talking about, and there's going to be 12 after that, as we go through the development. So the very beginning is right up against 29. If we took the 4-inch meter approach, which is what the size that we've been using at the other apartment facilities, and those are multiple buildings on one site. But if you did the 4-inch meter approach, it looked like, and if I'm reading the chart correct, Bob, it's a proposed, there was an alternative 1 and an alternative 2 on the last sheet of that, and then on the right side, there was a proposed and an existing.
Yeah, on the last sheet, the last alternative one, what I did is I put down in the first 2, the second and third columns, what the availability fees are for Bedford.
Okay.
And then the next 3 columns, what they are for the Service Authority, and then the last 3 columns, I prorated the Bedford for each meter size, what it would be for the Service Authority, using the same, prorating from the base.
And that's exactly how I thought you did. So if I use that same 4-inch meter, I was just going to make it just kind of, for these 2 apartment buildings we're getting ready to submit, Sam is still he's gonna pay the authority $142,000.
So you'd have a 4-inch meter for both, one for each.
Correct. I don't know, I'd have 1 meter that serves both
So a
buildings.
4-inch meter serving 2 apartments.
Yes, there'd be a master meter out front, and beyond the master meter, it's the HOA.
So then when you build the next 2,
It'd be another master meter.
another
for that.
4-inch.
Yeah.
So, and how many apartment buildings total? 12?
I think we had 12 in our, I've got the drawing here. We had these first 2, and then I think we have another 12.
So 14 total.
So 14 total. Under the alternate 2 scenario, which Bob has down over here at the bottom, which was based on the number of units, right? Essentially what Bob did, and I'm not speaking for Bob, so correct me if I'm wrong. That first $810,000 that we were quoted when we first started doing this a couple of months ago, now would be $405,000. So that $142,000 option that we're talking about by the meter size is now going to be $405,000 if you did it by the number of units. Is there a savings to Sam? Yes, but is $405,000 stopping the project? Yes, it probably stops the project.
Well, if you do it by the meter size,
Yes.
14 buildings, 14 divided by 2 is 7, times 86, 700, that's $606,000 for all the buildings, right?
Yes. Now, I may be able to, so that meter may be able to serve 3 buildings instead of 2.
Right.
See what I'm saying? So
That just depends on
we
your
still
fire
have to get
flows
into
and
that.
absolutely.
If I could interject, that chart, I just threw that out there, it's just to get the discussion going. I wasn't
Exactly.
proposing that.
And then what I'm saying is
Okay.
taking that as reality. I'm just afraid you're going to take that second option because 405,000 still, and if I go to Bedford and I go to the city of Lynchburg, the Bedford price using today, and I gave Bob some numbers. I went back to what BRWA does and I acted like I'm the developer getting ready to go build apartment buildings, how much is my availability fee? That would be, in Bedford is $204,000, in the city of Lynchburg is $186,000. It's actually a little cheaper in the city of Lynchburg. So, you know, we're at 140 by this scenario, and then I'm not sure what your availability fees, and I appreciate the proration that you were coming up with in that number, but that should be the order of magnitude that Sam could expect to have to go if he went to Bedford or the city of Lynchburg. Now you're back in the ballpark, and that, if anything, it's more enticing to come up to Amherst under that scenario.
I guess where I have the biggest heartburn is, I mean, I get it when you first tie your line in, all right? But if you're putting a water main in that you're paying for and you're turning it over to the service authority, right? Because it'll become our property. And then we're gonna turn around and charge you to connect to it after you
Yeah.
put it in. That just,
The only way.
shouldn't the cost of the line come off of could the cost of the line offset the availability fee or become that's kind of what, somebody was saying that.
That's a great idea.
Certainly can if you all make that decision. That's up to y'all.
Yeah, but, you know, going that route, it may be feasible, but at the same time, I don't want to subsidize the development through the fees we're charging the residents of the county that have been here as well, so.
The one way that developers swallow it, if you will, is they're not gonna be the ones that replace it, right? So 50 years from now, that fee that I paid, I can somewhat understand that because that's going to a future replacement, if you will. So it's like trying to balance out what's important. I think what you said is absolutely right. You could do it and say that availability fee would cover whatever $85 a linear foot is, and you could say this much linear foot would be in lieu of the availability fee, something like that. There's certain things you can do.
There's something else to think about, and I'm guessing with these numbers, I really don't know off the top of my head, but like you're saying a 4-inch meter to serve 108 units. Let's say a guy next door puts in an apartment building, he wants a 4-inch meter, he's only putting in 50 units. he's gonna raise holy hell about raising the same, about paying the same availability fee.
Does he really need a 4-inch meter?
Well, who knows? But let's look at the difference, let's look at an industrial complex. Let's say you got somebody who needs a 4-inch meter because of peak flows. His actual water usage is not gonna be that high, but he needs to be able to pass a certain amount of water through at certain times, so he needs a 4-inch meter. So, that's a second example of a problem with doing it with, just something to think about.
What Bedford does, the reason it's a 4-by-1-inch meter, you pay the availability fee by the larger meter, so you pay the larger 4-inch meter. Your water usage rate is, for example, when you first start building the apartment building, we might have, on that 4-inch meter, I can have up to 6 apartment buildings maybe, okay? So just an idea there. When you first move in, you only have 2 apartment buildings online, so you're not using that much water. So they do a compound meter, so they use a 1-inch meter, and you pay what that 1-inch rate fee is, which is pretty small. But once you get to that 3rd or 4th building, then that 4-inch rate makes that bill, monthly bill, pretty high. And that was shocking to my clients when that first started. So you have to have that thought in your matrix too. So there are ways to do it with a low flow and a high flow rate, but it's a monthly bill rate is the way you attack that.
So let me ask you this, Mr. Warner. We obviously are not gonna have a meeting in July. So the next time this would come before us is August. I mean, is this,
I'm gonna have grading plans submitted. He's gonna be pushing dirt August 15th. That's the push that I have right now.
so he's doing that part of the project.
We're doing the grading plan part of the
Isn't
project.
there a rezoning also?
There is a rezoning.
Yeah, the rezoning will be before the board this month.
June 20th is this first part. And so what we're hoping is to submit grading plans June 21st.
I guess what I'm getting at is this availability going to cause him to not do the project?
It would cause him not to do the project. He's hoping, because of the good nature we have and had discussions, that this can be changed by the time he goes to make the connection. And so to get ahead of waiting on you all to make that decision, he's asked me to go ahead and start the grading plans and get the grading going. If we can get this all resolved, then he'll make the application for water. And that's what we'll do.
When would he make that application?
I would say probably middle August. I would bet middle August, probably September 15th at the latest.
Just out of curiosity, why so soon? I mean, you're not gonna have it built for what, end of next year or something? He doesn't need water until then, does he?
So he's digging pads is the first part of his grading pad. His real fear is not to have these under roof by next spring. So he's trying to get the college kids in. So we're trying to find ways, not only are we going to have the grading plans done, but we're going to dig the footings first and do the grading around that. So yes, there will be a really quick push for him to get that in there. So it's a lot of fiscal planning, obviously, but to get that income coming for next August is critical to him, and that's your student transition.
It certainly has been a bombardment of apartments and townhomes in certain areas. I've never seen anything like it. It's like the hotels. Now they've kind of stopped, and the apartment buildings are really.
You know what's so cool you said that? When we first started, 2007, hit the recession should have been the it of it. And when we first started, I remember my client saying, well, let's build the first 3 and see how it goes. And we've never quit building them. And when we first started, it was people with kids would not come to apartment buildings because they don't have a yard. I bet we said that 1,000 times early on. And now it's the opposite. You really have to account for schools coming to those apartment buildings and having stops because everybody's got travel baseball now. Everybody's got travel. They're out with their kids so much. The market has just changed and people stay in those apartment buildings and townhouses more so than single family. Although we are seeing a kickback in single family. But it is interesting how the market has changed.
All right, so board, I would say right now, I would lean more towards the meter size. I don't necessarily want to make a decision on this without the full board present. So I think the best we can give you is, yes, we understand what the issue are, we are willing to work on it and do something, but it's probably not going to happen until our meeting in August.
Okay, that's perfect. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Trent, appreciate that.
All right, Mr. Hopkins. Water infrastructure improvements.
I just want to give you an idea of some of the things that I'm looking at in the way of water infrastructure changes. The lines in blue that I've highlighted in blue or traced in blue, or actually drawn in blue, are extensions. The ones that are in orange, that are pretty much right down the Route 29 corridor and surrounding the area, are lines that have to be replaced. You've got in front of you in your packet a list of the different projects that I'm looking at that it would be wise if we could get at least most of these done in the next few years. First one is Colony Road, which you're familiar with, which we are already under construction. That is this. Well, it's at the bottom center of the page, the 12-inch line, in the short line in blue.
Left side of your screen there.
What? Where? Right there. You see it there? See the cursor? So that's the 12-inch line. That's under construction right now. We hope to have, we're going to have that in by the end of this year. And that's the line to replace the city supply with our supply to the mobile home park and the training center buildings that are staying open. Next one is, it's just not showing up very well. Is the, it's here,
Can you zoom in on that?
let's try that, that's a good idea.
There we go.
Okay, that's the Dixie Airport Road extension for the Monacan Indian. They've got 3 buildings going up there. They've already started construction on one. The third building is going to be that big medical clinic that is going to have the humongous fee if we don't find a way to address the availability fees. But that, we're planning that right now. That line should be installed within the next 30 to 60 days.
And they're putting the line in? Who's paying to put that line in?
We are. And but we're doing it with our crew. So it's all we're paying for is materials.
So why is Mr. Patel paying to put all his lines in, but we're paying for this line?
Because this is a 160-foot line that we can do ourselves for about, in a really short period of time, for about $20,000. Mr. Patel is going to, for our crew to do that, you're talking years, because we don't have.
No, I'm not. Let's take who does it out the picture. I'm just saying who pays for it. So we're essentially paying $20,000, right, to extend the line on Dixie Airport.
Yes. But doing all the work ourselves, not engaging a contractor. And the contractor is really where all the money is.
But isn't that a benefit to the Monacans?
Of course it is. Yes.
Does that not strike anybody as odd?
Yeah, I'm sitting here mulling that over right now.
Okay. What's your-
Sorry?
What's the next one?
Well, let's take that as an example. What is the alternative? Go ahead and charge them to do it, right?
They need the extension. They
Yeah,
would pay for it.
I know that if, as an example, if the neighbor down from me is at the end of the water line, he wants to extend it, he's gonna pay for it. I doubt the county is gonna pay for it, and just as an example, so maybe that's something it does strike me as somewhat odd.
Next one is the Ned Brown Road.
Well, let's stop right there, because, because if we then in turn, if we paid for it, right, to get it to their line and set the meter, and then in turn, we charge them based on the meter size, right, just all hypotheticals here, which would help us recoup the cost of extending the line, all right, I kind of get it. But then if we go back to the town center development, we're saying they're gonna put the line in, and then the meters they put in on the line, we're gonna charge them availability fees on it. Shouldn't that, I mean, wouldn't that tend to say, okay, if they pay for the line, that comes off of the availability fee calculator?
I thought about that ever since I came here. I've always thought that was wrong. But that's been the
I
policy.
mean, doesn't that,
It changed.
does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
So that line will be in within 30 to 60 days. This is Ned Brown Road. We talked about that in the past. That's an extension for Franklin Construction to facilitate 8 new homes at the end of that road. Way over on the left.
Right, the 8-inch.
The 8-inch line. The line from, this line here from Route 130 up to this, that's an existing line that was put in several years ago, many years ago, by what Dan, my predecessor, used to call a 50-50 project, with Service Authority paid half the cost, and the residents who came to Dan and said, hey, our wells are failing, we need a water line extension, they paid the other 50%. And so that line is in, and I've gotten phone calls in the last couple of months from people who are now living, who live on the rest of Monacan Park Road all the way down to the park, that are saying they're having the same problem. So I'm talking to them about doing a similar project, and so far they seem very interested in doing it.
And, I'm sorry,
No,
I think this is good discussion. So then how would their availability fee be calculated?
To me, it should be done the same way as you were just describing. They shouldn't have to
Okay.
pay it.
So it'd be like a 50% reduction?
Exactly, right.
So now I think we're getting somewhere. Okay, this is good.
All right, the next line to the right, the two 10-inch lines, there is an existing line from Elon along Cedar Gate Road to this point right here. And there's an existing line on Winesap Road, if you can see it, up to this point. And one of the things we've had problems with for many, many years, there's a single 8-inch or 10-inch, I don't remember, line that goes from the water plant to serve the Elon area. And that line, the way they installed it, they actually put it on top of rock. And just since I've been here, we've had 3 water main breaks. And whenever that thing breaks, Elon shuts down, including the elementary school. And I've been looking at putting an elevated water storage tank in that area to address that problem. But I've started to think that maybe a better way to address it would be to take these 2 dead-end water lines, extend them to the intersection there, and connect them, and be able to backfeed Elon from Winesap Road, which would hopefully eliminate the need for a water tank, and would also open up this whole area for development. The problem with that, you can see the pink line, that is the water designated growth area line, the limits. So I don't know whether we would be able to actually extend the water line into that and not adjust those limits. Because you'd probably have people who own property in there that would then want to develop. So that project there might involve adjusting the designated growth area.
So I'm sorry, that 10-inch line over, not the one in red, but the one in blue, is that what would backfeed Elon or no?
Yes, sir.
Okay. All right.
That'd be a rather long line. There's some,
It's a mile from the end of the line now to Winesap Road along Cedar Gate. You probably got the same distance to extend the Winesap line. So it's going to take a while.
unless we get some funding somewhere.
And at this point, there's not a whole lot of, anyway, yeah, that's just potential. All right.
Next thing I think we need to look at, there's a whole area east of Route 29 in the Coolwell Road area that is ripe for development. I see people out there, get questions all the time about when we get water in there. The problem is, we've got a water line from 29 along North Coolwell Road. We've got a line coming up South Coolwell Road, and we've got a line coming up, I think it's Isaac Walton Road. The area that is, that I'm showing in dark blue, we can't get water to that point without a tank. If we could, we just don't have, we can't get the pressure there. So to that project there, if we could extend those water lines to loop them in and get rid of those dead end lines, would need a water tank, but then that whole area there would open up for development. Like I said, I've talked to a lot of people that own property, big property in there that would like to develop in that area. We just can't serve them.
So have you had these conversations with Mr. Bryant, Jeremy Bryant?
Some of them, yes.
Okay. I mean, is that even an area that he sees potential for development?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Next one is Gillett Road on the west side of Route 29, and that is more than anything else, we've got two dead-end lines, or one dead-end line. Looping them in would also conceivably open up this area for development.
The topography in that area is pretty steep, though, in a lot of that
It
area.
might not be worth it, you're right. And the last one for extensions, a short 12-inch line down here to interconnect with the city. We've talked about, it would behoove us to have a connection to the city for a backup if the water plant ever has problems. And then we have various other smaller water main projects. But then you see all the ones that are in orange, that line along Route 29, you can see down, there's, right now, most of that is an 8-inch line, and that's probably not going to be sufficient to feed the Madison Heights Master Plan, all the development's going to be going on in there, and that line is about 70 years old. So it needs to be replaced sometime within the next 10 to 20 years. And obviously, the time to do that would be part of the VDOT master plan, what they're planning on doing, and what Mr. Rogers wants to do with Madison Heights as part of that master plan. And then there are several other lines in there. Most of them are just smaller. We've got a lot of 2-inch lines in Madison Heights they're old. They got too many connections on them. They're deteriorating. They need to be upsized. There's no fire protection because we can't feed fire hydrants. So we need to replace them also.
So do you know where those are?
Yes, sir. They're all on there. All the lines you see in there where you see 6s, those are all 2-inch lines that need to be upsized to at least a 6.
So I think this is outstanding information, and I appreciate the way you kind of gave us a visual on it. I think what will be helpful is, and maybe you've done this, is kind of let's prioritize new lines, right? And then I think we should prioritize replacement of existing older lines and come up with dollar amounts which would help us budget right in the future. So, I mean, how hard would that be to do?
Well, given the timeframes we're talking about when we would be wanting to do this, you're talking about going out 10 years, at least, maybe 20 years. I mean, I can come up with costs to do it now.
Well, yeah, but obviously, this
Well,
for now.
Yeah, prioritize what is needed first and foremost, and maybe bring those numbers back. I know a lot of the replacements are already in developed areas where you already have the people. Some of these are through areas where there are no, I mean, there could be potentially houses on those areas, but I would just like to see it prioritize these and bring them back to us.
Yeah, I think it's great that you're maintaining conversations with our community development staff, because if the town center development happens on 29, right, and we know that, and I'm just using this example, well, that's a 6-inch line or whatever it is, That's got to be upgraded. That would probably be number one, right? So kind of staying in touch, knowing where the developments are being proposed or talked about should help you set your priorities. Yep,
All right. Yeah, I think it's good. Thank you.
that's
Mr.
awesome.
Hopkins.
Thank you.
All right, well, I plan on Brent coming back with sewer at the August meeting.
Okay,
Similar presentation.
sounds good. Thank you very
Yes, sir.
much.
That's all I got.
All right, are there any citizens? Hearing and seeing none, any matters from the members of the Service Authority Board?
No, sir.
Mr. Hugh?
I have none.
I have none. Is there a motion for adjournment?
So moved.
All right. All in favor? Aye. We are adjourned. Thank you.